Over 1.2 million people have been apprehended illegally entering these United States, over 200,000 in the past month alone. The Daily Mail says this is the number of people being stopped along the border reaching a 20-year high. You add this to the very serious economic crisis that we're facing, and boy, do things sound really, really bad. One of the biggest issues we've been facing in terms of the migrant crisis is COVID, to be completely honest. We've got the rise of the Delta variant, which in my opinion seems to be a bit alarmist. We're seeing the reemergence of COVID restrictions and fears that in the next few weeks there could be a serious lockdown. New York, of course, just mandated the vaccine for most indoor activities. Well, many conservatives pointed out, how are they going to tell us to wear masks, lock down, can't have your business? We got to pay everybody money. We got to shut down. We need a moratorium on evictions, but they're going to be bringing in 1.2 million people illegally into this country. How are they going to say all those things when Joe Biden was caught by a whistleblower smuggling children into different states? Well, we learned that there was a major COVID spike among illegal immigrants and among CBP. So now Joe Biden has his opportunity. The Daily Mail reports Biden administration to offer COVID vaccines to migrants in U.S. custody along the Mexico border as number of people stopped reaches 20-year high. Wonderful. Not only are vaccines going to be, well, I should say in some places around the world, they are mandatory. In New York, they are, I'll say mandatory because as far as I'm concerned, if you want to do any one thing, you're required to have a vaccination. That is mandating the vaccine. You know, I was thinking about it the other day and I said, I don't want to call it a limited mandate because you can still go to supermarkets and stuff. But I was like, no. If you can't live your life to the fullest, if you can't pursue happiness without some government restriction, I know there's some things in the reason that's a mandate. Now, to be fair, there's a mandate against killing people and stealing from people. There's a mandate against owning fully automatic firearms without the proper ATF approval, you know, your NFA permits and things like that. And yes, there is now a mandate. You get a vaccine in order for you to pursue happiness. And this conflicts with a lot of people. Ultimately, I think the decision should be up to you and your medical professional. There's a big story right now I covered the other day, and now it's picking up steam. The band The Offspring. They've been around for decades. I was a big fan when I was a kid. And apparently they kicked their drummer out because he has Guillain-Barré syndrome. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong still. And he can't get the vaccine. This is the problem with mandates. It's also the issue with why you need to talk to your doctor, because what if this guy wasn't paying attention and went and got it? And his doctor is like, no, don't do it. There are people. You got to take it to your doctor. Well, now we can rest assured because we're going to make sure that all of the illegal immigrants that are coming into this country during an economic crisis are going to get the opportunity, not the mandate, to receive the COVID vaccine. Now, my concern ultimately in the end is that we're going to be headed towards more lockdowns while they're bringing people in. I do not see how the economy of the U.S. does not just implode. I don't see it. We got video after video of all of these people sleeping under these bridges, these illegal immigrants. We've got story after story talking about the million plus 1.2 million people coming in. All of these people now are going to try and work. Now, there's this belief among many on the left that they'll have to work, they'll make work for themselves, and that will help bolster the economy. But there's supply and demand issues. There's no stuff right now. We've got major shortages. You can't bring in 1.2 million people when we don't have stuff for the current people already here. So what does it say to me? With the debt ceiling crisis, the U.S. liquidating its assets, and the illegal moratorium eviction second wave, I guess it's not an extension necessarily. It just says to me that it's almost like, you ever play that game where you throw the egg to somebody? There's two people and you have an egg and you'll toss it to the other person and they try and catch it without having it break. And then you step back further and further and you're catching the egg and you try to absorb the energy so the egg doesn't splatter in your hand. That's what it is. We're the egg. That's the economy. And they're shuffling it back and forth, but they're trying to make sure that when they catch it, they absorb that energy and they don't let it crack in their hands. But eventually, as the game goes, the egg always ends up breaking at some point. So what I'm saying is we're being let down very slowly. Sooner or later, it will be suddenly. As the saying goes, gradually and then suddenly. Here's the story from the Daily Mail. They say President Joe Biden's administration will offer the COVID vaccine to migrants in U.S. custody along the Mexico border a new report revealed, as the number of people stopped reaches a 20-year high. The administration plans to offer the one-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine to migrants as they await processing by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the Washington Post reported, citing sources in the Department of Homeland Security. The vaccine would be given to those facing deportation, as well as those released into the U.S. pending a court hearing. Migrants who are being sent back to Mexico under the Title 42 public health law would not be offered the shot. The rollout is being done as the states in the Southwest have seen an uptick in COVID cases thanks to the highly contagious Delta variant. In Texas, the daily case count exceeded 10,000 last week for the first time since February, and the Republican Governor Greg Abbott blamed Biden's border policies for spreading the virus. Abbott last week authorized Texas state troopers along the border to stop any vehicle upon reasonable suspicion that it transports migrants, citing the growing COVID case rate in his state. But a federal judge on Tuesday blocked his order, saying it would have the effect of exacerbating the spread of COVID-19. I love this. I just want to give a round of applause to the authoritarian crackpot state that is these United States. You get one guy being like, we're going to have to pull over any vehicle that we suspect of carrying migrants because it could spread COVID. And then a judge goes, I'm going to block that order because it could spread COVID. Oh, isn't it amazing? Okay. Let me try, guys. All right, here we go. I, Tim Pool, hereby decree cilantro is banned because the production, transport, and trade could spread COVID. Sorry, cilantro, you're out. Is that the game we're playing now? Where the politicians are just like, I think we should give Congress a raise. I agree, because if we don't, it could spread COVID. That's where we're going? I'm being somewhat facetious, but look at how hilarious it is that you have Abbott and a judge both pointing the finger saying, no, you're spreading COVID. No, you're spreading COVID. Amazing. Meanwhile, the million-plus people who have come into this country illegally literally did spread COVID. So, sure. What a clown world we truly live in. Arizona reported more than 2,000 new cases on Saturday and Sunday, the highest daily total since early March. In July, 210,000 migrants crossed into the U.S. along the southern border, the highest one-month total in 21 years, according to the Department of Homeland Security. The number of children traveling alone who were picked up at the border reached an all-time high of more than 19,000 in July, according to preliminary numbers shared with the Associated Press by David Shahulian, Assistant Secretary for Border and Immigration Policy at the DHS. Quote, the rates at which encountered non-citizens are testing positive for COVID-19 have increased significantly in recent weeks. And although the rate of infection among CBP officers has been declining, this rate recently began increasing again, even though the percentage of officers and agents who have fully vaccinated has grown significantly since January. CBP was holding more than 10,000 migrants in custody as of August 1st, nearly 8 times its COVID-adjusted capacity. Wow, that's insane. 8 times. On Monday, the CDC extended an order limiting entry for migrants due to the coronavirus, Title 42. Isn't this absolutely beautiful? Thank you, CDC, for saying we shouldn't be letting people in the country. And then Joe Biden being like, hey, oh, come on, man, open the door and let them walk right in. Great. That 1.2 million number, those are the ones we apprehended. How many people did we not apprehend? I'm sure it's quite a bit. The Biden administration said Title 42 is responsible for sending away most single adult migrants who crossed illegally. And the United Nations and ACLU had called on President Biden to end the order. The order is used to expel roughly 100,000, mostly single adults each month. Additionally, about 20,000 detainees in ICE custody have received a dose of COVID vaccine so far. More than 1,000 immigrants were actively infected as of August 1st, and 9 have died. The U.S. government is holding more doses of the COVID vaccine than it needs domestically. The administration donated and shipped more than 110 million doses of the vaccines to more than 60 countries, ranging from Afghanistan to Zambia, the White House announced Tuesday. The 110 million donated doses came from U.S. surplus vaccine stock as the pace of domestic vaccinations slowed amid widespread vaccine hesitancy in the country. I don't agree with that phrasing of vaccine hesitancy, but I'll read one more. Let's read a little bit. They say roughly 90 million eligible Americans aged 12 and over have yet to receive one dose of the vaccine. I don't think vaccine hesitancy, it's fair to say that's why things are slowing down. I certainly think one component of the lower vaccination rate, or I should say of the vaccination rate not being higher, is hesitancy. But what does that really mean? Hesitant to get the vaccine. Now, of course, as I say 50 billion times, you make your medical decisions between your trusted professionals, loved ones, doctors, whatever. I don't think it's that people are anti-vaxxers. That's the narrative you're getting. There are all of these stories where it's like a guy and it's like, guy gets COVID and then dies, and last message is, I wish I had the vaccine. Or there was that woman in Alabama who was like, I take their hand and they say, I wish I had the vaccine. Can you give it to me? And I say, I'm sorry, it's too late. And I'm like, dude, these stories are so on the nose. I'm sorry. I'm incredulous. I do not believe that there is somebody sitting on a bed and they're sitting there just like typing out some message to their family when they're sick or being intubated. I just don't see it. Now, what I think is a big component in the vaccination rate being low is that people are going to their medical professionals and getting advice. And what I mean by that is there are some people who can't get it. That's just it. The idea that everyone everywhere for any reason should just go out right now, walk up to a 7-Eleven and take a vaccine in the street. This is media propaganda. This is political. Now, I understand the reason for doing it, but you got to make medical decisions. You got to talk to people you know and trust who are going to tell you based on your age group, the risk rate, all of those things. And you know what? I do believe most doctors will say, you can get the vaccine. And I will say to a lot of people who are like, I had Charlie Kirk and Vosh on the other day. And Charlie was saying things like it's experimental or it's not efficacious. And we have a story on timcast.com. Actually, the Pfizer vaccine is particularly effective. And more importantly, for those that are concerned about mRNA, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is not an mRNA vaccine. That's the one that really, really confuses me with a lot of these lines when people are like, yeah, but mRNA this or that. And I'm like, so there's Novavax coming out and there's Johnson & Johnson. It's not an mRNA vaccine. I don't think it's an MMR vaccine, which is interesting. It's they say it's more similar to that. They say they basically took a piece of DNA from COVID, the COVID spike protein or something like that, and then they put it in a common cold virus, an adenovirus. Anyway, I digress. People are, they want FDA approval, and that I absolutely respect. If someone said, I want to wait for it to be, approved, sure. But I'll tell you this. My opinion on all of this stuff, my opinion, and I'm going to leave it to you. You make your decisions. Don't come to me expecting me to be able to give you all of the answers, because I certainly can't. But check this out. We got the story from timcast.com. Tyson Foods will require employees to be vaccinated. The meat packer announced the policy to workers on Tuesday. But it's more than just that. It's not just a mandate. It's something else. Let me read a little bit. Tyson's U.S. office workers have until October 1st to be fully vaccinated. Its plant employees have until November 1st. Senior corporate executives must be vaccinated by September 24th. Quote, Tyson plans to give frontline workers who get vaccinated the $200 bonus, in addition to the current policy of providing up to 4 hours of pay for getting inoculated outside of work or through an external provider. The extra pay, as well as the deadline, are subject to talks with unions who represent those employees. Now, this is just one more story, right, in regards to mandatory vaccines. But I think it's a good example that it's coming. It's going to be happening. Now, I mentioned this before a couple times, saying that I thought it was fine if a private business wanted to mandate vaccines. And a lot of people got mad saying, you're for mandated vaccines. And I'm like, well, actually, I am a bit more libertarian. I do not think the government should intervene and tell a private business what they can or can't require. And then someone said, so you're saying that a private business could fire someone who got an abortion? And I'm like, it's the boss. Yes. I think that's a bit, trying to like push the envelope in a sense, or like trying to push me to a position that is actually quite controversial, difficult. But the point is, for the most part, I think the employer and the employee, they have no obligation to each other. The problem I have with, what we're seeing now, people saying you shouldn't be able to mandate it at a private business, is that you're effectively saying that, the business and its people have are being regulated under the government as per that arrangement and agreement. And there's limits. I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers, to be completely honest. 120,000 employees might be a little too much. And I think the problem with it is what we saw with Pete Parada of The Offspring. That I don't agree with. All right. If there is someone who has a medical exemption, firing them, I think is absolutely wrong. And it's discrimination. Of course, then there's the conundrum of me saying the government should regulate that you can't fire someone for medical exemptions. But you see the problem. So I try to be a bit more libertarian in the sense that the private businesses, you don't have to enter into a contract with them for employment. They don't owe you anything. But I'm not going to pretend that it's an easy answer in any capacity. I like the idea of private businesses saying like, leave us alone, let us do our thing. But then I don't like the idea of discrimination on the basis of medical issues, which is still another government regulation. So this is why I'm so often kind of just like in the middle, because it's not like there's a simple solution to these very serious moral questions. But I bring up Tyson just to mention, to highlight an example. More and more industries are going to start doing this. They say the United Food and Commercial Workers, the UFCW, represents 24,000 Tyson workers. The union encourages workers to get vaccinated, but wants to ensure workers' rights are not violated. We believe the FDA must provide full approval of the vaccines and help address some of the questions and concerns that workers have. This is from their international president, Mark Perrone. Additionally, employers should provide paid time off so that their essential workers can receive the vaccine without having to sacrifice their pay, and can rest as needed while their body adjusts to the vaccine and strengthens their immune system to fight off the virus. I want to stress one thing as well, too. If your employer tells you need to get the vaccine to keep working there, they are legally responsible for any adverse event. That is on the CDC's website. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it's on the CDC's website. It's on a .gov at the very least. So if your boss is like, I want you to get this, first of all, I'll tell you this. My problem with it for the most part is like, you shouldn't tell someone they have to have it just because people need to talk to their doctors about what's right for them. And I don't like the idea of a doctor being like, why not? It's like, dude, if I have like a headache and it's a 2 out of 10, I'm not going to go take ibuprofen. If it's a 5, maybe. If it's a 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, yeah, I'll be throwing down some Advils or something. But my point is, you need to have that assessment with your doctor. And there's a problem, I think, with these industries outright mandating to 120,000 people. Now, again, like I said, these are difficult moral questions. What I explain on Timcast IRL is that I think scale is very important. If it's a small business with less than 50 employees, I think they should have a lot more freedom and leeway in who they do and don't work with. If it's 120,000 people, well, then we've got some other issues. But I will tell you this. It's very simple, my friends. If there's 120,000 employees and the business says we want to mandate a vaccine, I say fine, because they have a union. And if the union doesn't represent the workers, well, then the workers aren't being represented. And I don't think we need government intervention in that capacity. But again, I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. I will say people should quit. And I know a lot of people saying, I don't want to quit. I can't quit. It's hard. It's not easy. People didn't want to leave New York City. Now look what happened. Now I tell you this, man, I know people in New York who are angry and livid, and I'm willing to bet, I would put a gentleman's bet. A gentleman's bet, meaning no money. They're going to get the vaccine. These people who are conservative, who say they live there and they're like, I can't believe this is happening. What do you mean? Of course I can believe it's happening. And so they're probably just going to go out and get the vaccine. And I'll tell you this, if you don't like the mRNA stuff, Johnson & Johnson, but I'll tell you, don't take advice from me. That's talk to your doctor. I tell you what, though, it's coming. I think the lockdown's here to stay. I think we are addicted to this system and we'll never give it up. Fox 5 San Diego says stimulus checks. Could payments turn into monthly guaranteed income? There we go. Progressive Democratic lawmakers proposed legislation on Friday that would issue recurring stimulus checks or guaranteed income with monthly payments of up to $1,200 for adults and $600 for children, saying poverty is a choice. Ilhan Omar tweeted, "It's time we prioritize new economic indicators and economic policies that will prioritize sustainable and equitable growth. Today, we're introducing 2 bills, a guaranteed income bill, a bill to establish an alternative economic metric." A new economic metric, basically universal basic income. People aren't working right now. If nobody makes stuff, you got no stuff, you can't buy stuff. If you give everybody money, they won't need to work and they won't need to make stuff and there'll be no stuff. A lot of people are saying, people realized work sucks. These jobs are unfulfilling. And I'm like, yes, work sucks. And you know what, man? The problem we have in this country, I think, is that we have been raised to believe we're going to play video games and go on motorcycles. I grew up with work. My family had a cafe and I worked there. And it was what you did. And there was enjoyment and satisfaction in the accomplishment. And now you have today people saying, but I don't want to work. I want to sit around and do nothing. Why? You know what, man? For all of the craziest conspiracy theories that are out there, I can't imagine that there is a group of learned individuals, of better men, as they've been described, and I mean that facetiously, who are sitting there thinking like, it's good that people don't want to work and want to extract resources from the system without providing anything to it. Okay, I guess. I don't think that's going to end very well because eventually you run out of stuff and then there's no stuff to eat and then you're hungry and then what are you going to do? Eat the grass? I guess. That's where we go, huh? The stimulus thing that I see here suggests to me, should it succeed in some capacity, I mean, it's already basically functioning, the lockdown will never end. They'll just create more and more excuses as to why people can't or shouldn't work. Maybe there will be a renaissance. People will start taking time to think and develop, and it will help stop cultural stagnation because our culture is stagnated. No joke. Maybe. I'm not entirely confident. At the very least, I can say this. If you are a person of means and talent and ability and intelligence, you're going to be fine. You know, things might get a little worse. The night is always darkest before the dawn, but I'm confident. I'm comfortable. I see all of these things and I'm like, yeah, that's going to suck, I guess. This destroying of small businesses, the riots, now the lockdowns. But you know what? We're survivors, aren't we? America's long been. I think we will be just fine. You know, but I will stress, we have to remain vigilant and keep our eye on these things and push back where we see the excesses. Otherwise, you fall and you become like communist China or the Soviet Union. So it's important we address these things, push back and say no to them. And I think it's also important to recognize that, let's be real, most of us are pretty capable. And I think in the worst case scenario, we'd probably be okay. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.